Hello, Blues, and welcome back to Dugout Daily, where we talk everything Manchester City. Before we get going, if you're new around here, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, as well as checking out my ex at MCFC Hibs, where you can keep up to date with all the videos coming out. Today, we are reacting to our FA Cup quarter-final draw, where we drew Liverpool at home. I'm joined by Dan once again. How are you, mate?
Very good, thank you, pal.
Good to hear. We will get straight to it then, and we will start with the quarterfinals are set for the weekend of the 4th of April, just 3 weeks away, and the first game after the international break. This tie comes right after the Carabao Cup final against Arsenal, which is before the international break for us. Then we have Liverpool at home after the break. Over for Liverpool, they have Brighton away in the Premier League on March the 21st. So they could potentially be coming into this game with a tough result. Brighton's not an easy place to go, is it, Dan?
No, but I think, I don't think the league form of Liverpool will be the biggest case to knock this fixture for us. But obviously it would be quite nice if they could have a tough fixture before coming in, but I don't see it personally. I think, Brighton should be a winnable game, but, Liverpool's form at the minute, you never know. Hopefully they just take it out with them physically. Maybe get that last minute goal or something against them to knock the confidence, knock the morale, etc. But we can see and we can hope.
Yeah, definitely. There's an international break as well between them two games, so I don't think it'll be the biggest difference maker. However, after this game, both teams could potentially have a quarter-final first leg in the Champions League. It's looking very unlikely for us. We'd be playing against what looks like Bayern Munich after their 6-1 win in the first leg, but we've got to turn around a 3-0 deficit against Real Madrid. Liverpool would be playing PSG or Chelsea in their quarter-final if they get through after losing their first leg 1-0 against Galatasaray away from home. It looks like City will be playing Chelsea away in the Premier League the weekend after this game. Liverpool will host Fulham in the Premier League. We'll start with, do you see Liverpool getting through?
In the Champions League?
Yeah.
It's 50-50 actually. You'd think going back to Anfield against a Turkish team at 1-0 or what is it, 1-0, you'd think with Anfield you should be able to overturn that, but I've read a stat that since they beat Barcelona, I think they've only won one game in the knockouts of the Champions League at home, or one game in Europe. I think even in the Europa League they struggled in the knockouts at home.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see Galatasaray getting a result there, and I think they were no mugs when they turned up at the Etihad, and I think they've got some certain, they've got the quality of players. They've got Gundogan, they've got Osimhen, Noah Lang. They've got a few decent players on their team as well. So I think that'll definitely be a more interesting game to watch than most people will think from just looking at the fixture.
Yeah, if they do get knocked out, which you're saying is 50-50, they host Fulham in the league a week later, so that shouldn't be a difficult task, really. However, on our side, it's basically as good as done, us getting through in the Champions League, isn't it?
Yeah, game over. But yeah, curtains. We've had our say on that. The head loss is definitely, my head is definitely still on Mars. But we've had our say on what we think of that. And 24 hours later, it's definitely not it's not a great feeling.
No. So it looks like we'll have Chelsea away in the Premier League, the game after this, a week later. It just carries on our tough run of fixtures, doesn't it?
Yep. I suppose we could look at this run of fixtures now and then think realistically, like, look, we're avoiding Bayern, which is massive. How much that would take physically out of us over two legs. even if we weren't to go through, would be enormous. So, if we can take the small positives out of that, we will now have weeks off, basically between games.
Yeah.
Which, it's it's brilliant for the domestic competitions, but I think realistically for us, you want to be playing that Champions League game.
Yeah, definitely.
That's just the standard to the club now, isn't it? But I can't see. I just can't see a way that City get through. So that's not anything to worry about.
Looking at the Premier League, then we're currently in second place, 7 points behind Arsenal for the title, while Liverpool are down in sixth. They're probably fighting for Champions League football this season. This is more of a question towards Liverpool's side in terms of Arne Slot's potential job, but say they get knocked out in the Champions League, which is definitely a possibility, and they lost this game, could you see Slot getting the sack?
No,
not
now anyway. I think for in between the months of March to May, I think sacking a manager is just shooting yourself in the foot, unless you're somebody like Spurs now who probably needs to get rid of this Tudor fella. I just don't see any sort of club with any brains, and let's be honest, Liverpool actually do think about things, unlike another certain proclaimed massive club. I think they just won't see it valuable. If they are out of the Champions League, out of the cup, etc. I don't. I think they'll just roll with it. See where Slot gets them, and then Slot will go in the summer.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Looking at the other quarter-final fixtures, Arsenal have the tough task of going to a Championship side, Southampton, who shocked Fulham in the previous round. Chelsea host League One Port Vale, who are the lowest ranked team left after they stunned Sunderland, and West Ham host Leeds United after beating Brentford 5-3 on penalties. To be honest, none of them are really exciting fixtures to look forward to. I can see West Ham and Leeds maybe both wanting to lose. They're basically both fighting for survival. And of course extra games, but you can't discredit the opportunity to go to Wembley, can you?
No, and that's the thing that these clubs may think about. Obviously we are very privileged to be able to play there about 7 times a season, it feels like at this point. But for these things, we obviously City fans will remember their first trip to Wembley, etc. in 2011 or whenever it was. So it's a very big thing, and why wouldn't it be? That's the pinnacle of English football, and to be playing on a ground such as Wembley is a huge privilege, not just for the fans but for the players as well. I think every football fan in England grows up, dreaming of playing at Wembley, and there's plenty of those players that will dream of playing at Wembley, and
definitely
they're only 90 minutes away. I mean, look at the poor players at Port Vale. I don't see them doing it, but there's the extra motivation for them to go over upset. In terms of the games, though, I have a very set mind of I think how it will go. I think the winner of City or Liverpool will go into the game against Chelsea, and I think the West Ham and Leeds will play against Arsenal. I just see it being that way, because this is definitely not a scripted draw or anything along those sort of lines. That's just a pure estimate on who teams are getting and whatnot. So that's where I can see it. Unless Port Vale get through, then I think Arsenal will end up with Port Vale in the semi-final.
Another tough draw. Well, we know better than anyone not to underestimate Liverpool. This rivalry has transformed over the last decade into probably the greatest in English football history. Historically, Liverpool have dominated with 110 wins to our 60, with 58 draws in 228 meetings. And in the Premier League era, it's 23 wins for Liverpool, 13 for us, and 21 draws in 57 games. Since the takeover in 2008, everything has changed. This has become the highest quality rivalry anywhere, as two teams pushed each other to insane levels and actually wanted to play football, unlike some nowadays. From 2016 to 2024, under Pep and Klopp, we saw 6 of the 8 highest points totals in Premier League history. There were just 2 ridiculous teams at the time, weren't there, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that they could have been 2 of the greatest teams in Premier League history. I think, we can't forget, what Liverpool have done that season. I think, they only lost 1, which was against us, and I think it was 7 draws. So if we didn't beat them, then they would have been Centurions and Invincibles, which would make them the greatest Premier League side ever. I mean, I personally would be putting that 18-19 Liverpool team above the Invincibles in the pecking order anyway. That's controversial for me. Well, that would be my controversial. But I think 7 draws compared to 12 draws. So you can't underestimate the teams that they've had. I mean, our teams have been an absolute joke as well. That even in the era, Centurions, the 18-19 season, and then we went on to the 4-peat. So, I mean, the teams we've had have been they've been a joke. I think over the last 10 years it's been dominance by us 2, really. And rightfully so. They've deserved probably a lot more. And, we've pipped them to it in the majority of the years. And you can't help but feel sorry for them. Well, I wouldn't say feel sorry for them because you never do. But,
you've got to give them credit.
Yeah, they do deserve probably a lot more than 2 Premier Leagues. For those years under Klopp alone. But two brilliant teams going at it for 10 years, and I think that's starting to decline a bit now, unfortunately, for both sides. But we've now got this new era of football or rugby, wrestling, whatever you want to call it, that are appeared and look like they're taking over. And brilliant watch. So that's the standard of English football now since then.
Yeah. Well, we'll be happy this is a home game, as Anfield's been a fortress for City, as we've won there a grand total of 5 times in the last 70 years. We had a 2-1 win in an FA Cup replay in 1956 after a draw at Main Road, a 3-1 league win that ended a 25-year winless run at Anfield on Boxing Day 1981, a 2-1 Premier League win secured by 2 late goals from Nicholas and Alka in 2003. City's first league win at Anfield in 18 years was behind closed doors in 2021 in a 4-1 win, and a recent 2-1 league win in front of a capacity crowd in February. Simple as that. Anfield's been a fortress, hasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, Anfield's a horrible, horrible, horrible place to go. And we know it. We've experienced it so many times. And I think in a cup tie, look, apart from it being probably a decent day out, I don't really see much advantage of it being Anfield.
No.
I think any City fan would take this realistically going into that draw. Look, we all wanted Port Vale, home or away. But let's be honest, I think we all wanted a home draw, and that was the most important thing to get. It doesn't matter who it was. We could have taken Arsenal at home, and we'd have felt like we had a chance. So, home draw is really important, especially avoiding a place like Anfield where we've struggled so much. And I think at the Etihad we've been fairly decent in this last 10 years against them. They've had their odd freak result. They played us last year and played us off the park. Wasn't hard last year. But I think before that, the only other time I remember them really doing something at the Etihad was in one of Klopp's first games, where we got ripped apart by Firmino and Coutinho, and that was at the end of Pellegrini's era, which again wasn't exactly a tough task for the majority of teams coming, because we were a shambles. But I think we have the positive record massively at the Etihad against them.
Definitely. And of course, at the Etihad, we beat them 3-0 in November with goals from Erling Haaland, Nico Gonzalez, and Jeremy Doku. They're going to want revenge for the first double we've done over them since I think it was 1937 in the league. So they've definitely got an extra incentive, Liverpool, haven't they?
Yep. But then again, I mean, I think, you know, we should be pumped for that. We should really be up for the cup now, considering that we basically shot ourselves in the foot in the Champions League. You know, that was all our doing last night. So, you know, we should really be, after the FA Cup now, and we should really see that as the opportunity. You know, if we are going to sacrifice one of the competitions that we're in, we can't really do that for the Carabao Cup now. So it's going to be between the FA Cup and the Champions League, because you can't really sack the Premier League off.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're really going to have to iron that FA Cup and go for it. You know, we're really going to have to put our foot down on that. And, you know, Liverpool shouldn't be a game. And Liverpool, yes, they'll be up for it, because, again, their season will probably depend on that game as well. And ours definitely could. You know, we can't really afford, well, I don't really think Pep at the minute, with the credit that he's got in the bank, he has plenty, obviously, but I don't think that in his mind he can afford to go trophyless for 2 years, you know, on the bounce. I think that'll really hurt him personally and a few of the players. So, you know, this is a really interesting competition to watch.
Yeah, well, it'd be the first time City go trophyless for 2 seasons in a row under Pep, I believe. So there's definitely an incentive there. Looking back at our FA Cup run this season, it's been dominant, really. We started with a 10-1 demolition of Exeter in the 3rd round in January, then a 2-0 win over Salford in the 4th round for an own goal and Guehi. And in the 5th round, last weekend it was actually, we went to Newcastle and won 3-1 as Savinho scored and Marmoush got a brace after Harvey Barnes' goal. What's your thoughts been on our FA Cup run so far this season, Dan?
Yeah, look, I mean, that first game, I mean, that definitely was, that's something that I think most fans that were there will definitely remember for the rest of their lives. A bit similar to like when we beat Huddersfield at Halifax, 10-1. It was one of the two, Huddersfield.
Huddersfield, yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, we couldn't have got off to a better start. I mean, you know, we obviously had the 8-0 against Salford last year. So to get the 10 was a massive thing. I think playing Salford, you know, we took that easy. I think, you know, the players already knew they were getting a week off or whatever it was. And they already, you know, they were basically on the beach and didn't get out of gear one. And, you know, and get out of first gear. And you know, we cruised to a 2-0 victory. It wasn't the prettiest of watches. But the job was done. You know, we probably should have done a lot more for our own confidence. But at the time, you know, you've just got to take getting in the hat. And then definitely. We went to Newcastle, which we could have quite easily have completely sacrificed that, and it looked like he might have done that. With the team he put out, you know, he may have sacrificed that cup. You know, St James's Park is not an easy place to go, as we know. And I think, you know, going there, we got ourselves a very, very nice result in the end. You know, we played really well. I think, I mean, you know, it's a good and a very, very special day when Savinho scores. And Marmoush gets minutes. You know, they're both as rare as each other. At the minute. So, I think our run's been fairly decent. I think the only letdown to it would obviously be only 2-0 against Salford. You know, if we could have stuck an extra 4 or 5 past them, I think, you know, we'd be looking at that thinking we couldn't have got actually much better than that. But that would be definitely my only complaint. But that's not a biggie, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly that. And looking at Liverpool's run, they beat Barnsley 4-1 in the 3rd round, Brighton 3-0 in the 4th round, and Wolves 3-1 in the 5th round. It's been fairly solid, that, really. 2 Premier League sides there. One was a 3-0 win at home and a 3-1 win away to bottom of the league. It's expected they'd beat each and every team in that run, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think their run has been obviously a lot more consistent. You know, they'll have faced a few more Premier League teams, but I think Brighton at that time, you know, playing them at Anfield, you know, that was probably always going to be a fairly simple game for them. You know, with Brighton, they'll probably been thinking more about survival at that time, thinking of it. They were definitely down in that area when they played them about a month ago. And then, playing Wolves, etc. I didn't watch it, but that would have been a fairly easy enough game when looking at the stats. And I think Barnsley again, that was a very, very, very easy game for him at the start. But I did think that the game was only over in the last 10-15 minutes. They did struggle a bit against them.
Yeah.
And it did look a bit touch and go at one point. But I can't see. We've had a fairly similar run, I think. Now that we've played a League Two team, they've had a Premier League. But apart from that, I don't think there's much in it. Yeah,
and the final point, the last time we met in the FA Cup was actually at Wembley in the 2022 semi-finals. We'll all remember Zach Steffen's absolute disaster class on that day. Liverpool won 3-2 with goals by Konate and a brace by Sadio Mane. Simple as that. We just didn't turn up that day, did we?
No, I think that we were very lucky it got to 3-2 in the end. I think, we were absolutely battered for at least 80 minutes of that game. And, I remember it very vividly, it's not your day when your goalkeeper starts doing that. And that was, inevitably, the end of Zach Steffen's career, basically. I don't even think he's playing for the US national team anymore. So, that really, really, he had his Kinski, his Karius moment, etc.
Yeah.
He was never to be seen again. It was a horrible day, that. But that Liverpool team was a whole lot different to the Liverpool team that will be coming up against.
Oh, definitely,
in 3 weeks' time. That Liverpool team was one of Klopp's best ever teams. They had that period from about 2019 to 2023 where they were just almost as unplayable as us. And in another era of football, if they had that same team from 2023 to 2026, from now for the next few years, they'd have absolutely walked the league.
Definitely.
And that just shows the decline in the league, I think, in terms of quality. But when the champions elect are as bad as they are, that's in the most respectful way possible. This is what's going to happen, and we'll look back on this era of football, I think, and this is going to be England's golden age in league football. The last 10 years.
Yeah, well, looking back at that Liverpool team, they actually played in every game possible in that season. They lost the Champions League final in Paris to Real Madrid, won both cups on penalties against Chelsea. That might have been both games, actually. They definitely won the FA Cup on penalties. And they finished second in the league on the last day due to Ilkay Gundogan's brace. So, it's just simple. That Liverpool team was top, and if they were around nowadays, they'd be the best team in the country by an absolute mile. So, simple as that. That is it for this one then. Everybody, thank you all so much for watching. If you're new around here, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, as well as following me on X at MCFC Hibs. Next up for us is the West Ham preview on Saturday night. It can't get worse than Madrid, but you never know. So we will see you for that one. Everybody take care and come on City. Cheers, guys.